irracional i irresponsable de la violència per part de l'estat espanyol.
Hoy no ha habido un referéndum de autodeterminación en Cataluña.
Hello and welcome to our special edition of the Newsmakers, live from Barcelona. The sun has set on Catalonia tonight, but not on the dreams and aspirations of the more than 2 million people who voted on October the 1st to break away from Spain. But it comes with a catch. It didn't happen with the blessing of Madrid. Madrid continues to say that vote was illegal, even though 90% of those who took to the polls decided they want their separate country. How did we get here? Why did we get here? And what happens next as one of Spain's most vibrant provinces, Spain's for now, continues to be restive, and Spain insists this vote means nothing, and therefore the people of Catalonia's vote shouldn't have gone ahead, and Mariano Rajoy is not happy. We'll be discussing the politics, the economics, the culture, looking at both sides, speaking to both sides, and getting them to talk to each other as well to find out how does Spain forge a way forward as the continent also watches the situation with worry, with criticism, after extraordinary pictures of national police beating up people who sometimes weren't even protesting, they were just voting. That has sent ripples along international media as well. Spain looks bad as a result of it, but does it change anything in terms of the vote? Does it make an illegal vote any more legal? And does it make the aspirations any greater? We'll be looking at all of these issues with a collection of guests tonight. I hope you'll stay with us for the duration of the hour. But let us bring ourselves up to speed first with this report from Sandra Gatman, who has a look at how we got to this point.
It was a day of hope, pain, and defiance, of clashing narratives between the oppressed Catalans chasing their right to choose self-determination.
Grandparents, children, women are all crying, and everyone is suffering. Why? They just want to vote.
And a staunch central government protecting the rule of law and Spanish unity.
We are Catalans proud of being Spanish. Catalonia is part from Spain for the last 5 centuries.
Neither side was prepared to back down, but few predicted this. Thousands of riot police were deployed on Madrid's orders to stop the vote at all costs. They seized ballot boxes at polling stations and used rubber bullets and batons to keep voters away. More than 800 people were injured, but Catalonia's leaders declared victory.
Today, millions of people mobilized, facing all kinds of difficulties and threats. You've said loud and clear that you have a message for the world. We have the right to decide our future.
It's a message that's fallen on deaf ears. Madrid denies it even happened.
Hoy no ha habido un referéndum de autodeterminación en Cataluña.
But voting did take place at thousands of polling centers, where Catalan police, many supportive of the separatists, defied Madrid's order to block voters. Thousands of Catalans took to the streets, celebrating what they see as a decisive win. With both sides claiming victory, Spain's next course of action is far from clear. The Catalan president says 90% of voters chose independence on Sunday, but just over 2 million ballots were cast out of more than 5 million eligible voters. That's a turnout of 42.3%, and critics say that's hardly a majority. Still, members of Catalonia's regional government are pressing ahead. Lawmakers have already approved plans for self-governance to kick in 24 hours after the vote, regardless of the turnout. That might force Madrid to consider its last legal recourse, triggering Article 155 of the Spanish Constitution, to suspend Catalonia's autonomy and force new elections in the region. The hope is that the two governments will consider some sort of dialogue. But the fear is that Sunday's events may have pushed Barcelona and Madrid into a far deeper political crisis. Sandra Gatman, The Newsmakers.
Let's begin with two men on both sides of this debate. It's a passionate time and a divisive time right now in Catalonia. I'm delighted to introduce Carlos Silva, who's a member of the National Executive Council of Union Progreso y Democracia, UPYD. You were anti the vote, and we're gonna get into that. We also have Oriol Amoros, who we've had on the program before. We spoke down the line. This is the first time I'm meeting you in the flesh. Good to meet you in the flesh, Oriol, who's the Secretary for Equality, Migration and Citizenship in Catalonia. Let me begin with you, Carlos. It happened. Yes. Madrid was in denial. It's illegal, it's illegal, it's illegal. There's only so many times you can say it's illegal. It went ahead anyway, despite Madrid trying to stop it. Now that it happened, and now that 90% of those people who actually went to the polls decided they want to break away, have you changed your mind at all?
No, not at all.
Tell me why.
I think that it's true that it's illegal. It was an illegal referendum. In fact, it was not a referendum at all. It didn't meet any of the standards, international standards for something that might be called a referendum, no neutrality of the administrations, well, anything at all, right? Even there is proof that many people have voted many times as they liked, whatever they liked, with no control, with no electoral voting, autonomous administration or a board to control the voting, but it happened. I think that it was wrong.
But you're pointing out an irregularity. So if, and this is contested, right? So okay, let me put it to you the other way. If there were no irregularities, because I've heard this over the past 24 hours, there are those who say some people voted twice. Are you saying that if there were no irregularities, you might have accepted the vote?
No, because it was illegal. It's impossible. Right. Because sovereignty is not divisible in Spain. So it's against constitution. So it's impossible from the very beginning. So it's not a matter, because you introduced the subject and said that it sounded as if it was a kind of decision between Rajoy or a whim of the president of the Spanish government, and it can't be. And so the regional government in Catalonia has decided just to break the law.
Okay. So again, we're back to the legality of it all, Oriol. It is illegal. It's against Spanish law, right? It's illegal, but there's a political reality,
yes,
and it played itself out yesterday. Yes. How do you feel about what happened yesterday?
Well, I have two feelings on that. In one hand, I'm very sad because there are almost 900 people injured just for wanting to express their political opinion and for wanting to vote. Is something that never has happened in the any European country or an EU member, and it's been so brutal, the police performance yesterday, that we can't imagine really that they go so far. No? It's something that when you have a government, when you have police, you think that their priority is your safety, and not to put your safety in danger. So they've been hurting hundreds of elder people. You can see the TV. There are lots of images of that, and these images are on the front page of the main newspapers all over the world today. So in one hand, I feel very, very sad on that. And in the other hand, it's been a clear victory, because of course I deny that it was possible to vote several times. And I think that is a kind of absurd discussion, because if you want a referendum with guarantees, don't send police to close medias, don't send police to close almost 200 websites, don't send police to threaten 78% of mayors of Catalonia has been threatened by the Kurds to not help the organization of the referendum. During all the day, the helicopters were flying over the poll stations just to block the system, the informatic system they are working with. They close 400 poll stations. There is 2,315 poll stations. and 400 were closed with so brutality. So if you want to, what you can not say at the same time is it hasn't happened, and you can see that it happens. Why do you send 14,000 policemen to close something that is not happening? And if you do it, it means that it happens. It means that that's imposed to you. I have to remember that today Spain is at level 4 of alert of terrorism attack. What are doing for 14,000 policemen in Catalonia when we are on level 4?
Let me ask you, Carlos, was it a mistake to bring in national police? I mean, bring in people from other regions especially. A lot of them had heroes send-offs, right, from their hometowns, where people were sending them to guard the Spanish Republic and the nation. Was that a mistake because they seem to be fired up to come and protect the sovereignty of their nation?
There have been many mistakes on the government's side as well, on the Spanish government side. One thing is that the referendum was illegal and it should never have happened. And a different thing is that the government of Spain has done it right, I think. But all the messages that Oriol was saying, all that kind of narrative that the Catalan government has made up to start a negative campaign against Spain is partly or mostly fake. I mean, it's false. I mean that the amount of people that have voted is not. We can't trust the figures that the Catalan government has.
But if they fudge the figures, right? Wouldn't they fudge it higher than 42%? For example, turnout.
Sorry, the figure. He's right. The figures is not correct. It's not 42. It's 56. Because I understand that the foreign media don't count as a normal election, but here has happened that 800,000 votes has been kidnapped.
Right.
So if you put this all, it's almost 3 million votes.
Okay, so he's saying
this is 56%.
Okay, so he's saying you had these votes.
So many.
They were carried away, right? But isn't it an interesting argument to say, well, hold on, if they were going to rig this thing, at the end, why does the turnout only say 42%? Wouldn't they have had it much higher?
56.
Well, I think that according with Verhofstadt, I think that said it, that to do what the Spanish government did, it should have just let it happen again as it did 4 years ago, because it had no important the result, because it was illegal, as I said before. So I really don't understand why the government acted the way that it did, because I think that it should have suspended the autonomy a few months ago, especially.
Article 155 should have been.
Yeah, sure, sure. Months ago.
And you don't think there would have been hundreds of thousands of people out on the streets here and we would have had 100%?
No, I think that the Spanish government has all the legitimacy on his side, so he could have acted with by applying an article from the Constitution that is absolutely legal, and so he has the right to use it, especially when the Catalan government is continuously I don't know, saying publicly that he's not going to obey and follow the law.
Okay, and we're going to talk a bit more about Article 155, maybe towards the end of the program, as we sort of look forward at what might happen, because there are all sorts of permutations here. The vote, according to the Spanish government, was illegal. But for many international observers, they found it legal enough to come and have a look at the vote and to find out how it unfolded. One of them was an Israeli member of the Knesset, Ksenia Svetlova. I bumped into her earlier today in a very noisy and vibrant rally, and I asked her what she saw the day before, what she had experienced, and she felt the state was heavy-handed.
What did you see yesterday?
Well, with the mission of the observers that I was a part of, we were going through polling stations here in Barcelona and also outside of Barcelona in Tarragona and Valls and other places. So part of what we saw, it was actually a brutal violence that was implemented against peaceful citizens that were meaning to cast their vote. and most of them were unable to cast their vote, at least in Barcelona. This is what we saw. We found ourselves in the middle of the provocation that was started by the National Guard, by the National Police, against people who wanted to vote. After 5 seconds, they were sitting on the floor and singing songs, national anthem, other patriotic songs. And then suddenly the police started shooting rubber bullets of that size, or the size of an apple, at them without any prior announcement, without any negotiations. They started shooting at them and beating them with clubs. So this was very outrageous, especially we are talking about, we are here in the middle of Europe. Yes, this was definitely an attempt to brutalize the citizens and to stop this vote.
Was it from Madrid? Was this policy from Madrid, in your opinion?
Yes, definitely. This was a policy from Madrid. It was a national police, not a local Catalonian police that did not interfere. These people also violated illegal, is what we were told by the local parliamentarians, because their faces were covered at most of the times.
Did you come as in your personal capacity or as a member of the Knesset?
I am here as a member of the Knesset, but however, it's not a mission that was sent by the Knesset. It's an international mission of parliamentarians from practically all over the world, mostly from Europe, but not only from Europe. And we came to inspect the process, democratic process of the election. We are not here to make a statement about, the future of this referendum or what the Catalonians and the Spanish should do. However, we were here to follow the democratic process, and it was mostly democratic. If there were not the interruption for the central government, then it would be, I think, perfect.
But if I'm Prime Minister Rajoy, I say, Israel's my ally. I say this vote is illegal. Why are you allowing your MK to come and observe an election that I don't even recognize?
Well, in Israel, still we consider ourselves as a free country, and there are a variety of views, also on Palestinian issue, also on the Catalonian issue. Well, as we know that our Prime Minister does everything possible not to allow the Palestinians to, have their right for self-determination and their own state. Well, my party stands against it. We believe in the two-state solution. We believe in the right of self-determination, also for the Palestinians, and separation from them, based on the two-state solution. So I do not see here any contradiction whatsoever. I do, however, see contradiction with what Minister Rajoy says, and contradiction with the European values. When he himself speaks about the rights of the Palestinians, what exactly does he mean?
So that was Ksenia Svetlova speaking to me a little bit earlier today. She is a member of the Knesset in Israel. She came here. She was unhappy with what she saw from the state. And I'm going to park this off in a moment or two as we kind of, delve into deeper issues, some of the structural and historical issues, Carlos. But can we all agree that what happened yesterday really shot Rajoy in the foot and maybe even gave this independence movement more momentum?
Yes, I think it was a wrong move in the sense that it's giving ammunition for the nationalists for grievances for the next 40 years. Those images that have been rejected by the whole Europe. But it was an extremely difficult situation, and it was the result of the deep irresponsibility of the Catalonian government that pushed the whole population, thousands of people, to commit an illegal act and face the policeman. And also because one of the things that I think that we should talk about is the betrayal of the autonomous police that just disobeyed the attorney and the High Court.
What did you want them to do?
I think that they should have obeyed the Catalonian High Court and avoid people from voting the other day. Yes. And help, yes, with the rest of the police. They should have helped.
You're still a part of Spain. Shut down the schools, prevent the vote as police.
I think this is incredible. I'm sorry, Carlos, but I think your statements are unbelievable in a democratic country. So because the only political plan you're offering is to remain Catalonia inside Spain by the force. So it's not imaginable in a democracy.
Has never been outside of Spain.
Of course.
Spain has never existed without Catalonia.
No, well,
Spain is Catalonia.
This is an interpretation of history that you made, but it's not true. And I'm not agree on that. And we can talk to history about history if you want. But history is not point. I think in a modern world, what has the reason to existence to nations is what the people want to be. So we have to listen to people.
But what about the two-thirds of Spaniards in the whole country that don't want Catalonia to go away?
But not just in the
well,
whole country.
There haven't been any example in the world where a self-determination referendum were made for the people of the rest of the previous country. There is no other experience like that. Always is the territory who is deciding his future, who decides, and the voters of this territory who express their opinions. And as you can say, here the only argument is the law says no. Well, in a democratic country, it's the willing of people who makes the law. It's not the law who's a kind of cage where you have to put inside by the force, as we have seen.
I think this is a good opportunity for us to delve deeper into Catalan identity. What is it? I'm trying to figure it out here, right? I mean, and when we look at these discussions, the parameters are different for everybody else here. Everybody uses history instrumentally here. I hear about 1714 from Catalan nationalists. I hear about the unity of Spain and the blood spilled to keep the borders sacred here. Let's delve a bit deeper in what it means to be Catalan and what it means to have a Catalan identity. And can you actually still synonymously have your Catalan identity while proudly having a Spanish identity? For millions of people here, that is not the case. For millions of others, they say, why not? Express yourself, have your autonomy, but be a Spaniard. These are the fault lines in this society. Let's delve a bit deeper with Yvette McCullough.
Catalonia has a proud and distinct history that stretches back to the early Middle Ages. It's been part of Spain since the country's beginnings in the 15th century, but was given broad autonomy when Spain became a republic in 1931. Catalonia was a key Republican stronghold during the Spanish Civil War, and it was the last region to fall to General Francisco Franco's fascist forces in 1939. Under his rule, Catalonia's autonomy was revoked, and the Catalan culture and traditions were heavily suppressed. Catalans were banned from speaking their language in public, and traditional symbols like castells, where they formed human towers at festivals, were prohibited. As Spain returned to democracy after Franco's death in 1975, Catalonia enjoyed a resurgence of its identity, a passionate response to decades of suppression. Its autonomy was restored 4 years later, and today it has its own parliament, police force, and power over areas like education, healthcare, and welfare. It also has provisions to protect Catalan identity and language. But many Catalan separatists say this isn't enough. Football also plays a vital role in Catalan's identity struggle. Barcelona FC's slogan, "More than a club," was born out of the repression of Catalan culture under Franco. On Sunday, during Catalonia's referendum, Barcelona made a last-minute decision to play in front of an empty stadium in protest against attempts by police to shut down the vote. It issued a statement saying it condemned the events which have taken place in many parts of Catalonia today in order to prevent its citizens exercising their democratic right to free expression. In so many ways, Catalans already have an independent cultural identity. But if Spain tightens the screws after the referendum, will it end their dream of an independent nationhood? Yvette McCullough, The Newsmakers.
Carlos Silva, it's like a marriage. If the other party, the partner, wants to go, why don't you let them go?
Well, that's not the issue. I mean, it's not a marriage. As I was saying, Spain, Catalonia is Spain, and Spain is Catalonia. They've never existed apart, and Catalonia has never been a kingdom on itself. That is part of the myth, of the nationalist myth. And apart from that, what we're always saying about self-determination is right. It's not recognized for. It's only recognized for countries that are in a colonial context. And apart from that,
like Scotland and Quebec, for example.
Well, Scotland is the different, and it's a different story. England, Scotland, they come from a law in the 1700s. Yes,
but
the Union Act is
for example,
story.
okay, the Scots love their culture. Okay, fair enough. They love their culture. They had a vote.
You can say that only can do a referendum on self-determination in a colonial context, but there are 50 countries in Europe. 29 has less than 100 years of history and has made a referendum before independence, during independence process, or after independence process. 29 countries in Europe has done a referendum.
But everybody's saying, look,
so it's
like
not colonial
like
context.
Like Scotland, you've got a good deal. You've got a good thing going for you in the sense that you have your cultural identity. You can be proud to be a Catalan.
Yeah.
General Franco's not around anymore. Nobody's physically...
Well, this is something we can
died
discuss.
40 years ago. I was 10 by then.
Yes.
I mean, there are no real fascists on the street these days, are they?
He died, yes, he died many time ago.
So you have the best of both worlds.
The head of a state is the person who he decides. And there are many former members of Franco's party who then passed to popular, the present Popular Party, and there are some...
And they're dead.
Yeah. No. For example, the president of the biggest the president of the biggest electrical company here was put by the Popular Party.
But are they really squeezing Catalan identity? Is my question.
Sorry.
Are they really squeezing Catalan identity?
Squeezing, I don't understand. Sorry.
Are they oppressing you? Are they?
The oppressing. Oh, well, it's not the same situation as Franco regime. This is true.
Right.
We have now a standard democracy in many issues, but not in the issue of the liberty to decide our future. And I don't think that the key point is this. There are some countries that have different cultural identities, and they respect and they feel all these cultural identities at the same level. For example, Switzerland or Belgium. And when they go to an international, as an example, it's just an example. When they go to an international institution, the Swiss says, I have 4 languages and I have 4 cultural identities, 1 political identity, but 4 cultural identities, and I respect 4th the same. It's not the case.
Okay,
it's not the case.
I don't agree
when Spain goes to the wall, they say, I only exist in Spanish. When they have, for example, their institute to project the culture at the exterior, when they say the Spanish culture, they only think in Spanish. But Catalonia is a country where now we have people born abroad, from other regions of Spain or from abroad, 39% of population.
Right.
So we are an open society with not one only language.
Let me pause you there for a second, because Carlos, I want your reaction to a young person. Oriol's got white hair. He's an older person. Yeah, I also wanted to speak to some very, very young people.
I don't have hair at all.
So I didn't only want to speak to people with no hair or gray hair. I also wanted to speak to young people. I spoke to an 18-year-old on the streets today. His name's Gerard. He's 18 years old, tremendously articulate in English, which is, I think, probably his 3rd or 4th language. I asked him why all the fuss about wanting your own country. He voted yes. Have a listen to what he had to say.
The feeling that we have taken as Catalan people, at least mine, is that I don't feel like I'm from Spain. I don't share their cultures. I don't share their ideas, in part, and that feeling makes me feel like I want to break with Spain and have my own country that represents me in politics, in culture, in traditions, in my language, that they respect that. And during a lot of years, Spanish government haven't done this.
So there would be those who say, but that was in the past. General Franco did terrible things and so on, right? But now it's a big country made up of diverse people. You can express yourself as a Catalan. You can enjoy yourself as a Catalan, but just be a part of a big tent, a big family. What do you say to those who say, nobody is oppressing you today? Maybe in the past they were oppressing you, but not today.
Well, not today, but we can say yesterday they did, and in a very heavy way. And they have showed in days like yesterday that they don't want to know everything about what we think, about what we care. They only want us to stay here by the force if it's necessary, and they don't respect us anymore.
So, Carlos, a young man like Gerard sees what happened yesterday as sort of the true face of Madrid in his eyes. Why do you think someone like Gerard feels that passionately about this particular issue and wants his own
I think
country?
we have some serious problems in Catalonia, and one of them is education. Education that has been under control of the nationalist governments that have ruled in Catalonia for almost more than 30 years.
So you feel he's brainwashed?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's, I think that is one of the competencies that the government, the Spanish government, should recover from the Catalan government, because they have been ideologized from the very beginning in a system that tells them a history that's not true, and so they have believed all this narrative that has been created by the nationalists until they think that they have confused that with reality, and we have a serious problem. I'm not saying that is just Gerard. I think that he is quite representative of a part of the young people. There are other people that don't think the same, right? I'm not saying that everybody thinks the same.
But isn't that quite dismissive of everything he's feeling and thinking right now? He's just going, listen, you've been brainwashed by these nationalists. You don't really have an argument.
I don't really have an argument.
No, I'm saying you're dismissing him as if he's just...
No, I'm saying we have a problem. I'm not dismissing him. I think that there's been many things vitally done by not just the government now, but all the socialist government as well, and the Partit Popular government, by just letting things in the hands of nationalists for so long, and that should be reverted if we want to change this situation.
Okay, very briefly before I have to take a break, Oriol, why are you teaching this history to these young people? It's incorrect, according to Carlos.
No, what I think is that there are some views that you have a problem with democracy, because what
I have a problem with democracy.
Yes, what you cannot say
with your concept of democracy, maybe.
Yes, what you can say. Sorry, I haven't interrupted you.
No.
What you can say is all people that don't think like me is brainwashed, because it's the same that say the general prosecutor of Spain. He says that the Catalans were abducted by a ghost or something like that, because just we wanted to vote. So I was grown up during the Franco regime, so probably my brain was washed by Franco. I don't know.
Be more or less the same age.
And I'm pro-independence. So if you have, yes, I was. Yes. I was born on 1970. So I was 5 years under the Franco regime, and then the transition.
I was born in 1965.
Well, the school changed at the 80s, as you may remember. Yes, the school changed at 1980, and we took the competence in 1980, and you can change the school.
Do you think that Franco's regime had an effect on your education?
No, because I have family, and what I never will say is that you or other people that think like you, because you think different than me, your brain is washed. Because when there is...
We have a problem with education.
No.
We have a problem with education.
We have many problems with education, of course.
Yes.
We can do it better,
with
sure.
Ideology.
No, the teachers
with the use of children.
Teaching.
That's something that we've seen during the campaign, before the referendum.
Yes, I have
during
children.
The previous.
I have children.
Children that have been sent to demonstrations.
And if you don't mind, I tell my children my ideas.
I think that's indecent.
I suppose you tell your children your ideas. I tell mine my ideas, and then they grow up.
I'm talking about.
And they will.
And they will taking children to demonstrate.
And what is the problem?
I'm talking about using children as human shields.
So there is something that is called plurality, and freedom of expression.
No, and I'm glad we have a platform for this right here now. I've got to put a lid on it for the moment, because I have to take a break.
People that don't think like you.
Carlos,
plurality is a central value.
I'm saying that we must change politics.
Okay, Carlos and Oriol, we're going to have more of both of you later on in the program.
Okay.
And I think this is very important that we're having this conversation. I'm going to take a short break. Stay with us. Stay watching our special live Newsmakers from Barcelona. Don't go away. We're back after the break. Welcome back to our Newsmaker special live from Barcelona. We're in Catalonia. Those who voted yesterday want Catalonia to be its own country. Spain wants Catalonia to stay within its borders. The borders are sacred, according to many in Madrid and elsewhere in this country, and that's why it's, as you saw in the past few minutes just before the break, a very heated and divisive debate in this country. It cuts right to the heart of what it means to be Spanish, what it means to be Catalan. Outside, everybody watching, the European Union, of which Spain is a member, watching closely, condemning police beating up protesters and voters, but on the other hand, affirming its support for a sovereign state, the government of Mariano Rajoy. All sorts of chaos, according to some, might emerge if Catalonia unilaterally declares independence. And of course, Madrid has been saying over and over again they will not recognize it, as they refuse to recognize the vote. It still went ahead, things happened, and a political reality emerged. To delve a bit deeper into what will happen in Europe, let's look at some of the reaction from Europe and some of the European ramifications. Here's my colleague Natalie Perhonen with more.
The response from Brussels to the Catalan referendum has been blunt.
Under the Spanish Constitution, yesterday's vote in Catalonia was not legal. For the European Commission, as President Juncker has reiterated repeatedly, this is an internal matter for Spain.
It's a position that European Union leaders have not strayed from. Last week, they gathered in Estonia. But Catalonia was not on the agenda. And it wasn't until scenes like these became public that some European leaders called for calm. Belgium's Prime Minister Charles Michel said violence can never be the answer. We condemn all forms of violence and reaffirm our call for political dialogue. His Slovenian counterpart, Miro Cerar, agreed and called for political dialogue, rule of law and peaceful solutions. But one European leader did show solidarity. Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon's message was just let people vote. Catalonia is not the first European region with separatist ambitions. Scotland held a referendum on breaking away from the UK 3 years ago, but voters opted to stay. The Flemish movement in Belgium has called for greater autonomy, and nationalists in Sardinia have called for independence. But the EU's stance towards these calls is clear. The sovereignty of each of its 28 members is indivisible, and it does not support breakaway states. The European Commission says if Catalonia did become independent through a legal referendum, it would have to leave the EU. If that happened in the future, could the region join the Union? In theory, yes. But to even begin the process of membership negotiations, every EU government would need to support it. And Spain has made it clear that it will not allow its borders to be redrawn. Natalie Perhonen, The Newsmakers.
And we've done some musical chairs with our guests to delve deeper into this and have a look at some of the international impact. We spoke a lot about what's happening within the borders of Catalonia and within the borders of Spain. Let's look at the continent and some of the ramifications, because there's a lot of confusion as well from many. Let me introduce my guests here. Rafael Arenas, who's a member of Societat Civil Catalana, responsible for the international area and based in Barcelona as well. Robert Masí Nahar, who's a senator in the Spanish Senate. It's good to have you. And Jordi Palou, a Barcelona-based lawyer specializing in civil disobedience, and also you have some expertise on Palestine and other international issues. Good to have all of you on the program. Let's look at this. Robert, you support the yes vote.
Yes.
Would you understand that across the continent there are people freaking out? Because even though it's similar to the Scottish desire for independence, it's, I guess, left of center or sort of liberal. It's still populism in the eyes of many in Europe. It's not a right-wing, far-right populism, but it's still populism, and it involves breaking up borders that were deemed sacrosanct at the end of World War II. Can you understand the nervousness?
Well, first of all, it's not breaking the borders, or it's just the autodetermination of the region, that the people who live here, they want to run their own system. They want to have their own control on their institutions that they have. So, and they're different. They have different cultures. So, I mean, they want the auto-determination of the nation that they live in, which they call the nation. Because I'm living here for quite a long time. I mean, let's say 13, 14 years. And I was wondering, you know, why these people always call nation? Because, you know, one region in the same country and people call nation. And then slowly, when I came to know, I'm living here, and I understood and I felt myself that yes, they are right. I mean, they call it nation because they are different. And then I look into history, maybe when I saw the Catalan history, and I mean they have the very much right to decide their own future. Now they are doing it very pacifically. They are doing it very peacefully, and they want to have it decided, which we saw yesterday, very peacefully. They wanted to vote, and it's not that some people wanted and some people didn't want. And I mean, there was an opportunity for everybody. I mean, it was just an opinion. Referendum is an opinion that they ask opinion from the people, what you want, how you want to live.
But
in
again,
this country.
and let me take that again then. And Rafael, at the heart of it all, Spain's a sovereign state. You have to change the Spanish constitution in order to do this. The central government hasn't given its permission, and that's why internationally there's broad support for Spain's stance.
Yeah.
Is that normal? Is that acceptable? And is that the reality?
Mm-hmm. The reality that here they are trying, the nationalists, to break a border, to build a new border here in Spain and in Europe. And there are rules to do that. There are rules in international law and there are rules in national law here in Spain. At this moment, we cannot have a self-determination referendum here because the Constitution at this moment doesn't allow that, but the Constitution can be changed.
So should it be changed?
It's not my particular point of view. I think that we must to change the Constitution in many ways. I'm not in favor of self-determination here in Spain because most of the countries in the world have not self-determination in their constitutions. Most of the countries in the world establish that the integral territory of the territory cannot be divided, cannot be built a new state. So we can discuss this. But the problem here is not that. The problem is that the regional government is acting outside international law and national law. They are in a fat way. They are trying to act and build a state in a way that is not ruled neither for Spanish law nor for international law.
So let's ask Jordi's perspective on this. Jordi, is the regional government acting in a reckless way?
Let's say it's a complex situation and it's a long situation. And when we talk about the law, and there are many breaches of the law that we can consider if we study like that. In central government, let's say like that, and in autonomous government, if we look at it in that way. The thing is that today, if we're talking about of an European perspective, what we have seen this month, and this it's a concern, I think, internationally and particularly in Europe, is that there has been a huge and brutal violation of human rights. And this is a concern of European system, considering we have the European Covenant that is, according to our constitution, binding directly into the citizens. So this is a crucial thing.
And that's why yesterday was so important for so many. Robert, given you know how the Senate operates, do you feel they're going to double down now on the fact that they want to teach Catalonia a lesson, the regional government?
They always do. They always do because, I mean, in the Senate, they are in the majority and then they can do everything. And I think what we have seen in last month, and especially what we saw yesterday, they don't even know, they don't even need the Senate to do this. I mean, they did it. Just, I mean, they just did it. People, we saw people, you know, people just willing to vote, and they just, the police came up, and this is military police came out and start beating people, and this is so we were so unhappy to see this. I mean, people are anguished I mean, everybody. Look, I have seen many elections since I'm living here. I've seen 3-4 elections, and I haven't seen so much eager for the people to go and vote. And people were really willing to vote, and so peacefully, and right. What we saw yesterday, it was totally violation of democracy and the human rights.
Rafael, I'm going to give you 20 seconds because I have to keep on moving on, but 20 seconds to respond to that.
20 seconds. First of all, don't say Catalonia. Here in Catalonia, there are half of the people that is nationalist and half of the youth that is not nationalist. That when you say Catalonia, the impression, most of the people think is that all the people in Catalonia is in favor of the secession. This is not the case. Here we have a problem between Catalans, not a problem between Catalonia in Spain.
Well,
that's the main point.
I'm in favor, but I'm not 18 years old, like the other gentleman said before, that I'm not brainwashed. I say what I live here, what I feel here. This is what I say.
I'm sorry, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the question. The question was, the Senate want to give a lesson to Catalonia.
But those who disagreed could have voted yesterday as well. And that's why, in the interest of simplicity, I said Catalonia voted to break away, because you could have voted no.
You have to give a lesson to Catalonia. This is not true. It's not a lesson to Catalonia. It's a lesson to the regional government. Sorry?
If you disagreed with yes, you could have voted.
Yesterday, but the problem with a vote is that you must to choose who is the people who decide.
Fair enough.
Here, now, the people who should decide is all the Spaniards, not just the Catalan people.
Okay, I got to move on. But one of the crucial elements here is a lot of people here say, hey, it's the economy. We produce so much, but we get so little back from Madrid. That's one of the reasons why so many people chose yes. Let's have a closer look now with my colleague Basil Rehan, who looks at the economic background and impact of the vote.
Catalonia's regional parliament says it has a clear mandate to declare independence from Spain. But the question now for many Catalans is whether Catalonia would be economically viable going it alone. The region has Spain's highest GDP at nearly 20% of the country's output, driven mainly by tourism, research, and industry. Unemployment there is well below the Spanish national average, at 13% compared to 17% nationally. And Catalonia is by far Spain's top exporting region, accounting for 25% of all goods sold abroad. But while those figures paint a rosy picture for its economy, there are also serious challenges. Catalonia carries some of the highest levels of debt in Spain. As of June, the region's debt stood at more than $90 billion. That's over 35% of Catalonia's total GDP. And the region currently depends on loans from Madrid to pay that debt back. The question of Catalonia's future economic relationship with the EU is also uncertain. An independent Catalonia would be allowed to keep the euro currency, but a Catalan exit from the EU would carry profound implications for the region's industrial exports and the future of European investment in Catalonia. For many Catalans, the true cost of independence is only beginning to come into focus. And while that picture remains unclear, it will likely be a key factor in deciding the direction of post-referendum Catalonia. Basil Rehan, The Newsmakers.
So yeah, we've been hearing this for weeks now in the international media. 20% of the GDP, 25% of the foreign direct investment and so on, but such a small part of the country producing so much, not getting enough back. That's one of the arguments for independence. Let me bring in Jordi Munoz here, who's a political analyst and research fellow at the University of Barcelona, and of course Carlos Silva and Oriol Amoros from earlier in the program. They're back now. Jordi, something I found fascinating is that you have the very young, voting, or very young voting yes and very enthusiastic about it. And then I saw some very old people as well. They were cheered at the polling stations in their 60s and 70s. They had memories of, as we heard earlier, General Franco and repression of being a Catalan. And then reading about some of those who say no, who are sort of in between, not very old, not very young, they're saying, just be careful, you're going to destroy the economy. They're saying, you people are going to destroy the economy by doing this. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think the economic consequences of an eventual independence are uncertain, but also the economic consequences of not having an independence are also uncertain. I don't know for how long Catalonia can stand its current levels of industrial production and export with the lack of infrastructures and the lack of investment we have been suffering from for decades now.
Is that true, Carlos?
Well, I think that's not true at all. And I think that almost all analysts I've heard, apart from the nationalist ones, agree that the consequences for Catalonian economy will be disastrous. And they will probably, President Puigdemont will declare independence the day after tomorrow. And one thing is declaration, and the other thing is the application and the starting of a new republic. And I think that will be a huge disaster for you.
Guess what? Time's caught up with us. I've got 1 minute until I have to go off here. Article 155, Oriol. If they decide to do that, there's the argument, okay, the economy is going to suffer, and then they take away, they suspend your independence. Would you have gambled with the fate of Catalonia by this vote if they do that?
Well, all the threats of the Catalan economy, if we get independence, as we will get in the next month, will be if we have a bad relationship. But we want an agreement. We want a good agreement. We want a good deal for everyone. If we are able to negotiate and to decide things together, independence will be good for Catalonia and also can be good for Spain if Spain wants.
Okay, we'll have to wait and see if there is going to be a unilateral declaration of independence. Madrid will undoubtedly be unhappy at that declaration, and of course Article 155 would suspend the autonomy of Catalonia. Everything that they have right now would go away. If that happens, it would be huge. It's a divisive time, it's a passionate time. Gentlemen, I thank you very much for joining us, and I'm sorry time has really caught up with us. It's been a pleasure talking to all of our guests tonight here live from Barcelona. It's been a pleasure having you with us here live on the Newsmakers. I thank you for listening, and I hope we gave you some food for thought here as we explored and straddled the different political opinions here. Interesting times ahead for this city, this region, and this country. We leave you now with some of the more compelling images to come through over the past 48 hours. There's some brutality, there's some beauty, there's some expressions of nationalism, and there's some worry as well. Thanks for watching the Newsmakers. Bye-bye.